today looks a little different. I actually am pre-recording this video because I won't be available at 2 o'clock today. And so this will be just a little bit different. It'll be on YouTube and you can catch up if you didn't catch it at 2 when I post this. But we're on to chapter 6 of our book, Summer with the Moody's. And let's just get started right away. Max snapped the leash on Honey's collar. They had found an old leash in the basement from a dog they had had years ago. Dad said they could buy a new one next time they went to the store. But in the meantime, this would do. Honey excitedly wagged her tail, followed Max out the door. Mitch opened the front door of the van so Molly could climb into the seat. She giggled as she dropped a little curtsy before stepping in. "Thank you, kind sir." Mitch rolled his eyes and did a small bow as he shut the door, saying, "You're welcome, my lady." Maddie came skipping up to the van. She stood beside Mitch, waited for a moment, and then asked, "Ain't you going to open my door?" Mitch smiled and slid it open. "Yes, Maddie, hop on in," he answered as he helped her into the van. During this time, Honey had been dragging Max, who was holding her leash around the front yard. Honey's nose twitched in curious excitement as she explored the front bushes. For a minute, Max let her sniff. Then he said, "Honey, want to go for a ride?" Honey bounded straight toward the van with Max running to keep up with her. Honey jumped into the van and launched into Molly's lap in the front seat. Max and Mitch howled with laughter. Molly's voice sounded muffled. "Oh, Honey, get off!" she protested. Honey obligingly climbed down and sat between the front two seats. At this time, Dad arrived at the scene and joined the boys' laughter. "I think she is used to riding in the front seat. Are you sure you don't want to share?" Dad asked Molly. Molly empathetically shook her head. She wanted the seat to herself, and she wasn't interested in sharing with a 65-pound furball. After a short drive, Dad pulled into the driveway and drove up close to the house. They all climbed out. "Roof!" Honey barked loudly, scaring Max. "Whew, Honey, what's the matter?" "I think she's just excited to be back at her house," Mitch observed. Max laughed. "Oh, that's it. She probably wants to run around the yard and check out everything." "Sorry, Honey. You have to wait until we fix the hole. Then I'll let you go." Honey's brown eyes pleaded with Max. "No, sorry, Honey. Just wait." Dad said, "Let's look around the backyard. We need to find where Honey escaped." Molly and Maddie lagged behind the others. "Dad, is it okay if we pick some wildflowers along the driveway?" "Sure, Molly. We'll be out back, and you can find us when you're done." After Molly and Maddie picked some flowers, they started walking to the back. Molly noticed the lid for Mrs. Clifton's large trash bin lying next to the container. She dropped Maddie's hand, saying, "The lid must have blown off in the storm the other night." Picking up the lid and peering into the can, she added, "I wonder if there's any trash left." "Oh, yikes!" She dropped the lid and she jumped backwards, accidentally knocking Maddie over in the process. A loud hissing noise came from inside the can. Molly brushed Maddie off and hastily gave her a hug. "Dad, come quickly! There's something in this trash can!" Molly shouted. Dad concerned because of the urgency in Molly's voice, came running, with the two boys and Honey closely following. "What's the matter, Molly?" Dad asked breathlessly. "There's some kind of animal making hissing noises in the trash thing." "No, not just one, more than that. Maybe it's snakes." Dad, shielding his eyes from the glare of the sun, peered into the darkness of the bin and said, "No, it's not a snake. Looks like two raccoons. Probably a mom and a baby." Molly exclaimed, "Oh, Dad, can we keep the baby?" Mitch chimed in, Yes, a pet raccoon would be so neat." Dad shook his head. "No, remember, you want a dog at the end of the summer, not a raccoon. Anyway, I've heard that raccoons are not good pets. I think I'll call the animal control so they can take the raccoons to a safe place in the woods." Honey, catching a whiff of the raccoons, went crazy with excitement. Dad reached for his cell phone to call Mom and asked her to look up the number for animal control. She gave him the phone number and Dad called them. After his phone call, Dad turned back to the children. "We'll fix the hole where Honey got out since we don't know how long it will take for animal control to arrive. Let me first put Honey in the van with the air conditioner running. She is so wild about those raccoons that it'd be best if she'd stayed in there until the animal catcher takes care of them." After Dad came back, Max and Mitch filled the hole underneath the fence. They busily gathered dirt in a bucket and packed it in the hole. They even found a board next to the house to put over it for good measure. "There," said Max as he stepped back to survey their work. "That should keep Honey in." At the sound of a motor, they turned to see the animal control utility truck pulling into the driveway. A short man who fully filled his bib overalls clambered out. Seeing the way the man's hair stuck out from under his cap, Dad fondly recalled his childhood term, bedhead. "Howdy there, my name is Harold Gibson, but my friends call me Big Red. Your kids can just call me Harold. Y'all have a problem with some coons? There have been plenty of them around these parts lately," the man drawled. "Actually, Harold, our family's preference is to have the children call you Mr. Gibson. We feel that is a way the children can show respect to adults," Dad replied. Mr. Gibson nodded his head. "Whatever you want. Now, where are those coons?" "Right over here. My daughter found them in the trash can." Mr. Gibson lumbered along behind Dad and chuckled. "Don't worry none. It won't take me long to get these critters into a cage and take 'em back to my truck." They came to the trash can and Mr. Gibson stared in. A long pole was stuck in a loophole of his overalls. Max and Mitch watched eagerly, full of questions for Mr. Gibson. "Mr. Gibson, what kind of contraption is that? Are you sure the raccoons will not bite you? How long have you been catching animals?" Hold it. One question at a time. This here thing is called a catch pole. See the loop at the end of the pole? We just slip her around the coon's neck and tighten it. Once I plop 'em into the cage, I loosen the noose. You watch what the little critters do when I try to put it around their necks. Course, can't say that I blame 'em. I wouldn't be keen on having something around my neck either. Your other question? I just am careful not to let 'em bite me. I've been catching animals for about 20 years. Alrighty now, just step back a piece. I'm about to dump this thingamajig over, and just in case they run out, it'd be best to be a mite farther back that-a-way." They obeyed and stood watching with intense interest. Mitch was sure something grand was going to happen. "Dad," he loudly whispered, "do you think I can be an animal catcher someday? It looks exciting to me. Dad chuckled. We'll talk later, son. Mr. Gibson mopped his face with his handkerchief. It sure is hot today, little feller, he puffed, looking at Mitch. It's not often I get such a big audience. He pulled out his gloves and stuck his hands into them. Almost forgot, he exclaimed. I reckon I need a cage out of my truck. I'll be back. Glancing at Mitch, he added, Sonny, why don't you guard the coons while I get the cage? Don't let them run away now. Mitch nodded importantly. Wow, Mr. Gibson had given him a job. He stepped closer to the can. He wondered what he was supposed to do if the raccoons decided they were coming out. He turned his attention to Mr. Gibson, who had the cage and was now almost back. Okay, said Mr. Gibson. I think I'm ready. Keep back a bit here. I'm dumping this over and will use my catch noose to grab them. Mr. Gibson carefully pulled the trash container over and squatted on the ground, extending the pole into the container. He grunted as he tried to get a raccoon in the noose. Sneaky little varmints, he said as he focused on his job. A raccoon's claws could be heard scratching the plastic as it tried to escape the invading noose. Soon, Mr. Gibson pulled out a large raccoon. The raccoon's paws grasped at the rope and tried to pull it off its neck. Mr. Gibson quickly put the raccoon in the cage and shut the door tightly. That was close. That coon must got the rope off and then it could have been hightailing it for those bushes. Next, I'm going to grab that baby. He pushed the pole in and squinted as he tried to make out where it was hiding. He pulled the baby raccoon out and dropped it swiftly in the cage. Wow, Mr. Gibson said, mopping his face with a handkerchief. The big raccoon hissed and snarled unhappily, swatting at the tap of the cage with his paw. The tiny one crouched quietly in the corner. Molly uttered a little exclamation about how cute it was. Cute? Yes, miss, but I'd say they're quite the nuisance. I'm going to take them out in the country and set them free. I'd be better off now, folks, so I better be off now, folks. So take care, Mr. Gibson said, as he walked off carrying the cage. Dad followed Mr. Gibson back to the truck, thanking him for capturing the raccoons. After seeing Mr. Gibson off, Dad brought the excited dog out of the van. Molly, would you come fill up Honey's water dish? Max asked. I will scoop her food into the other bowl. Molly happily helped Max. Dad came into the backyard and unhooked Honey's leash, and the dog bounded playfully all around. Dad said, after Honey settles down, you can say goodbye to her, and then we need to head home. Dad watched as the children smothered Honey with hugs. He thought for a moment and said, this reminds me of a scripture verse I memorized when I was younger. It says, a righteous man regardeth the life of his beast. Molly was the last to leave Honey and did so sadly. She had grown to love Honey. Seeing Honey once or twice a day wouldn't be enough. She was all the more determined to make their pet sitting business successful. Oh, how she wanted a dog. But for now, she would keep praying and enjoying the pet sitting. Okay, well, that's our story for today, or our chapter today. So tune back in next week, Thursday at 2, and we'll continue the rest of our story. I hope you're having a great week and enjoying this time with your family, maybe even getting outside. Can you believe we had snow this week? Oh, crazy. But still beautiful weather to get outside and just get some fresh air. So enjoy your family this week and tune back in next week.